In the year 2060, Earth stood on the threshold of a new frontier. Decades of climate challenges, resource scarcities, and technological leaps had converged to create a bold new vision for humanity. Space was no longer just a realm of scientific curiosity or national pride. It had become a lifeline and a proving ground for human resilience and ingenuity. Thus, the Terra 1 mission was born. Captain Michael Reyes had been chosen for his remarkable skills and unbreakable spirit. Born in the bustling heart of Mexico City, Reyes had grown up with a view of the stars from the rooftops of his crowded neighborhood. As a child, he'd spent hours watching the night sky, captivated by the mysteries it held. But no telescope or classroom could prepare him for the sheer vastness of what lay beyond Earth's atmosphere. Selected from among thousands of candidates worldwide, Reyes represented not just his country, but the collective hope of humankind. The Terra 1 mission wasn't merely about Mars. It was about the survival of a species willing to reach beyond itself. As the mission countdown began, the entire world held its breath, and millions of eyes turned skyward as his shuttle lifted off. Space was silent, yet alive. En route to Mars, Reyes was alone in a way that no human had ever been. His capsule, outfitted with AI-driven navigation, cutting-edge life support systems, and redundant safety protocols, was a marvel of engineering. Even so, as days stretched into weeks, the silence deepened. He found himself both mesmerized and unsettled by the vast, unbroken darkness around him, punctuated only by the occasional glimmer of a distant star. Every day was structured to maintain his physical and mental health. He exercised rigorously, performed routine system checks, and engaged in ongoing dialogues with mission control. The AI, called Axiom, kept him company, though Reyes often found himself speaking into the void out of habit. Despite the wonder of his journey, a part of him felt as though he were drifting in a cosmic dream, suspended between two worlds. Mars grew steadily larger in his viewport, its rusty hue darkening the closer he got. The anticipation and anxiety were palpable. He was, after all, the first human to set foot on a planet other than Earth. Yet beyond the excitement lay the undeniable reality of his isolation. In the vast, unfeeling emptiness of space, humanity was reduced to a single presence, him. After a month of solitude, the time came for the descent. Reyes suited up, the familiar pressure of the gear settling over him like a second skin. Terra 1's capsule was designed to withstand the turbulent entry through the thin Martian atmosphere, yet every creak and shudder amplified his nerves. His pulse quickened as the capsule trembled under the intense heat of re-entry, and he gripped the controls with a determination honed over years of training. "Entry successful, Captain Reyes," Axiom announced with a calming tone. Outside the viewport, the landscape opened before him. Red sand stretched in every direction, painted with hues that ranged from deep crimson to soft ochre, like a vast ocean frozen in time. Shadows cast by the low Martian sun played tricks on his eyes, and for a moment he thought he saw movement, but he shook off the illusion. He landed in Jezero Crater, a site chosen for its ancient geological significance and, possibly, traces of ancient water. As he took his first step onto the planet's surface, he felt an overwhelming wave of awe. There was a silence so profound it felt as though Mars itself was holding its breath, waiting. "Houston, Terra 1 has landed. I'm on Mars." Each day was rigorously planned. Reyes conducted geological surveys, collected soil samples, and scanned the landscape for signs of past or present life. His routine consisted of moving from one predetermined location to another, each site chosen based on years of satellite imagery and hypotheses developed by Earth's leading planetary scientists. By the third day, however, the silence began to wear on him. Despite the cutting-edge AI that monitored his health and engaged him in conversations, the isolation felt sharper with each passing hour. He began talking to the landscape, addressing the rocks and sand dunes as if they might respond. The Martian expanse loomed endlessly in every direction, vast and indifferent. "Maybe you're hiding something, huh?" he muttered to a nearby boulder. "Something no one's found in all these years of orbiting you?" But Mars kept its secrets close. Reyes felt a strange sense of being watched, though he knew logically it was impossible. It was just the psychological toll of being alone in an alien world, he told himself, where every sound was his own, every shadow his own creation. On the sixth day, his equipment registered something unusual. As he maneuvered around a low ridge, his radar began picking up a faint, persistent signal, a frequency so precise that it defied natural explanation. At first, he thought it might be interference, perhaps a glitch caused by a gust of Martian dust, but the signal remained steady, pulsating at regular intervals. He adjusted his instruments, attempting to locate the source. The radar pinged, tracing the anomaly to a spot beneath the ground some distance away. The more he observed, the stranger it became. The signal wasn't just a faint hum, but a sequence, a rhythmic pattern that repeated in intervals, almost as if it were a message. "Axiom, are you picking this up?" "Yes, Captain Rise. Signal detected. Analysis indicates an unnatural origin," the AI replied, its tone uncharacteristically reserved. "Unnatural, as in artificial?" he asked, feeling his pulse quicken. "Yes, probability of human-made origin is negligible. Likely source, unknown technology." Reyes' curiosity flared, driving him forward with an intensity that belied his training. He knew he was venturing into uncharted territory, a realm that no human had touched or seen. The very sands around him seemed to shift, guiding him closer to the anomaly. He trekked toward the source, his boots kicking up small clouds of reddish dust that settled heavily back to the ground. With each step, his anticipation grew, his sense of purpose sharp and unyielding. Whatever lay beneath those sands, it was something that had waited, undisturbed, for untold millennia. Finally, he reached the coordinates. Reyes set up his laser drill, cutting carefully into the ground, watching as the soil parted to reveal something metallic and foreign. As he drilled, the Martian dust settled around him in an eerie silence, and the signal intensified. His heart raced as a distinct structure began to emerge, its surface smooth, metallic, and embossed with symbols unlike anything he'd ever seen. His initial thrill was tempered by the realization of what this discovery could mean. It wasn't just Mars that would change. This could redefine everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. Reyes stared at the exposed surface, running his gloved hand over the cold metal. The etched symbols shimmered faintly in the weak sunlight, hinting at an intelligence behind their creation. He felt a strange resonance in his chest, a sensation that went beyond mere curiosity, a call, a pull from the very heart of Mars itself. The words slipped from his mouth almost involuntarily. "What are you?" The days following the initial discovery were a whirlwind of questions and meticulous planning. Captain Michael Reyes carefully documented every aspect of the anomaly. The radar readings grew stronger, confirming that the signal emanated from a specific area just beneath the Martian surface. The data left little room for doubt. Whatever was down there was artificial, hidden, and ancient. Mission Control remained silent for longer intervals than usual, perhaps just as perplexed as Reyes, or perhaps because they were cautiously weighing the unknown risks of pushing forward. But Reyes knew this was what he had come here for, the discovery of something beyond human understanding. As he approached the source of the signal, Reyes' heart quickened. Before him stood a strange rock formation rising against the arid Martian plains, distinct in its unnatural symmetry. It was unlike any other formation he had encountered during his days on Mars. While most Martian rocks were jagged, weathered, and scattered chaotically across the landscape, this structure was precise, almost architectural. The formation seemed to defy the very nature of Mars itself, a stone carved by neither time nor the elements, but by an intelligent hand. The closer he got, the more distinct the details became. The rock had a faint glow, a dim but unmistakable pulse of energy that hinted at something alive, or at least aware. As he circled it, Reyes marveled at the peculiar markings covering its surface. At first glance, they looked like cracks, but they were too regular, too intentional. Reyes' training told him to approach with caution, but curiosity overpowered caution, a force too strong to resist. After double-checking his equipment and running through the protocols in his mind, Reyes activated the onboard laser cutter. The high-intensity beam cut through the surface like a scalpel, emitting a bright, blinding light as it made contact. A hiss followed, as if the formation itself were alive and breathing, exhaling a last gasp as he broke through its seal. The laser sliced down and across, forming a square outline. A final pass, and he stepped back, watching as the cut piece slid forward slightly, then fell to the ground with a soft thud, raising a plume of red Martian dust. His breath caught as he peered into the darkness beyond the opening. In the depths of that blackness, something metallic caught the faint light. Reyes moved closer, his headlamp casting its beam over the hidden structure within. There, just beneath the rocky surface, lay a hatch, a perfectly circular metallic portal with intricate symbols etched along its rim. The symbols were neither Martian nor of any earthly language. They resembled a type of script that seemed ancient yet sophisticated, like the whispered remnants of an intelligence that once inhabited this red world. He leaned in closer, his gloved hand tracing the edges of the hatch. It was cold and smooth, the metal reflecting his own pale reflection back at him. He could feel his pulse pounding beneath his helmet, his fingers tingling with the weight of discovery. This was something bigger than a simple outpost. It was a relic of a civilization that had transcended Mars itself. With a combination of awe and apprehension, Reyes took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He pressed a gloved hand against the hatch, testing its weight. To his surprise, it shifted effortlessly, as though responding to his touch. The hatch slid open silently, revealing a narrow passage that sloped downward, illuminated by a faint blue glow that seemed to emanate from deep within. As he stepped inside, the weight of the unknown pressed upon him. His every step echoed through the narrow corridor, each sound swallowed by the silence surrounding him. Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a place that had been waiting for him, a place that had lain dormant for untold millennia. The walls of the passage were lined with carvings, intricate patterns and symbols that hinted at a forgotten language, and he ran his light over them, illuminating every curve and angle. His mind raced to make sense of them, struggling to decipher what they might mean. The symbols felt oddly familiar, stirring memories of ancient petroglyphs back on Earth, from places like Mesopotamia or Egypt, places where humans had once made their first marks upon the world. The passage opened into a vast, dimly lit chamber, the ceiling rising high above him, its boundaries disappearing into shadow. His footsteps grew softer as he entered the room, his eyes adjusting to the faint bluish glow illuminating the space. The walls were adorned with more symbols, larger and more intricate than those in the corridor, and strange, crystalline structures jutted out at odd angles, casting prismatic reflections that danced across the room. Reyes took in the sight, feeling as though he had stepped into an ancient cathedral. There was an overwhelming sense of reverence, a sense that he was not merely in a place of habitation, but a place of purpose, a place that had once held profound significance to its creators. Suddenly, he noticed a central dais in the middle of the chamber, raised slightly off the ground. It was encircled by an array of consoles and panels, all of them dark yet pristine, as though untouched by time. Reyes felt an instinctive urge to approach, a pull that defied logic. His eyes locked onto the symbols engraved on the dais, unlike any he'd seen so far. He moved closer, feeling as though he were stepping across a line that had been drawn in time itself. As he reached out, his fingers hovered over a small, round crystal embedded in the center of the dais. It glowed faintly beneath his touch, pulsing softly in rhythm with his own heartbeat, almost as if it were reacting to his presence. And then, the room came alive. The consoles around him flickered to life, bathing the chamber in a soft, ambient light. Symbols scrolled across the screens, patterns of light and energy danced in the crystals, and a gentle hum filled the air, resonating with a power that defied anything Reyes had encountered before. Reyes felt a mix of awe and disbelief as he watched the room illuminate. He wasn't just looking at an ancient artifact, he was witnessing the reawakening of a machine, a system that had been dormant for eons. This was technology unlike anything humanity had ever seen, technology that was ancient and yet advanced beyond their wildest dreams. With every screen that blinked on, a feeling of sentience filled the air, as if the outpost itself were aware of his presence. It was no longer just a silent tomb. It was a place that had waited patiently, timelessly, for someone to find it. The symbols on the consoles began to arrange themselves, scrolling through a series of languages before settling on one that Reyes could almost recognize. It was Earth-like but ancient, a primal script that he instinctively understood was not of his world. "Welcome," the screen flashed, the word appearing in a language that stirred a distant recognition within him. "Welcome," Reyes murmured, his voice barely a whisper. There was a pause, as if the system were processing his response. Then, more words appeared. "Long have you sought the stars. Long have you reached for what lies beyond." Reyes felt chills run down his spine. This was no simple message. It was a conversation that transcended time and space, a message meant for whoever found this place, meant for him. From the shadows of the chamber, another shape caught his eye. Slowly, as if coaxed by his curiosity, a holographic figure began to materialize at the center of the dais. The light coalesced into a tall, humanoid form, with an elegant, elongated face and eyes that seemed to pierce through him, even as they stared into infinity. The figure wore ornate garments that shifted and shimmered with an iridescent light, its features radiating a sense of wisdom and solemnity. Reyes' heart raced as he took in the sight, realizing he was looking at a representation of the very beings who had once built and inhabited this outpost. The figure raised a hand, palm open, in a gesture of greeting. Reyes returned the gesture instinctively, feeling as though he were part of an ancient ritual, a dialogue between civilizations separated by an unfathomable gulf of time. A soft, melodic voice echoed in the chamber, not through sound but through thought, resonating in Reyes' mind. "Welcome, traveler. You have reached the threshold of knowledge left for your kind," the voice said, an ancient wisdom laced through every word. Reyes could barely comprehend the magnitude of what he was experiencing. Here on Mars, he had uncovered something beyond his wildest dreams, an ancient outpost, a beacon of a forgotten civilization, and now perhaps a guide. The figure continued. "This outpost was left to be found when your species was ready to reach beyond itself. We are the Anunnaki, the ones who shaped the stars and bridged the worlds. And now you have found us." Reyes felt his pulse quicken. He had been prepared for many things on this mission, but not for this. Not for an encounter that would change the very fabric of human history. Captain Michael Reyes stood transfixed in the dimly lit chamber, every sense heightened as he felt the weight of an age-old presence pressing down on him. As his footsteps echoed into the vast silence, he was acutely aware that he was witnessing something extraordinary, an echo of an ancient civilization long buried beneath Mars's rust-colored sands. This was no ordinary archaeological discovery. Here, he felt, was something that defied history itself, a forgotten chapter waiting for him to turn the page. The further Reyes ventured, the more he felt a latent energy in the air. It was subtle, barely more than a tremor, but it resonated deep within his chest, almost like a heartbeat, a pulse that seemed to quicken in response to his every move. The chamber ahead, illuminated only by the dim glow of his suit's lights, was vast and expansive, disappearing into shadowed corners that made it feel more like a temple than a laboratory. Then, without warning, a row of lights embedded in the walls and ceiling flickered on. At first, they were faint, casting pale shadows that danced eerily across the walls. But with each passing second, the lights grew stronger, pulsing to life in a sequence, and Reyes realized they weren't just lights. They were an entire network of control interfaces, consoles, and displays coming to life after millennia of dormancy. Ancient consoles, layered in the dust of forgotten eras, began to hum softly, a sound that filled the chamber with a strange warmth and vibrancy, as though the space itself was drawing in breath for the first time in ages. He turned slowly, taking in the scene around him. Everywhere he looked, symbols and patterns, vividly glowing in shades of cerulean and violet, began to dance across the walls, spiraling outward from the consoles and screens. Reyes could hardly keep up with the flood of information. It was as though the entire room had been engineered to react to his presence, as if waiting for him to awaken it. And as he watched, the symbols began to reorganize themselves, shifting through sequences of alien script until, astonishingly, some of them morphed into recognizable words and symbols from Earth's languages. He saw fragments of Sumerian cuneiform, hints of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, and symbols reminiscent of the earliest Greek and Mesopotamian alphabets. Reyes' mind raced, struggling to process what he was seeing. How could this alien technology have any knowledge of human languages? Had the creators of this outpost, the Anunnaki, been observing humanity from afar, cataloging its growth, its cultures, and its languages? Or had they, as legend suggested, been there at the very beginning, shaping the roots of human civilization? He reached out instinctively to one of the consoles, brushing away the dust to reveal a crystalline surface beneath his fingertips. As his hand made contact, the console responded, its symbols pulsing in a pattern that seemed to mirror his own heartbeat. The touch seemed to solidify his connection with the place, as if his presence had fully activated whatever intelligence lay dormant here. Suddenly, from the center of the chamber, a bright beam of light shot upward, diffusing into a wide cone that filled the room with a warm, ethereal glow. Reyes squinted against the brilliance, his breath catching in his throat as the light began to condense, shaping itself into a distinct form. It was a figure, tall, stately, and otherworldly beautiful, with an aura that seemed to command both power and wisdom. She was unlike anything he had ever imagined, yet there was a familiarity to her form, an echo of something buried deep within humanity's collective consciousness. Her skin was a rich, deep indigo, glowing faintly as though illuminated from within. Her eyes were pools of intense gold, piercing yet compassionate, and they seemed to hold galaxies within them, as if she were able to look beyond time and space itself. Her features were delicate yet regal, adorned with intricate patterns and symbols that seemed etched directly into her skin, or perhaps embedded like jewels. A crown-like structure rested upon her head, woven from strands of a silvery material that shimmered as if alive, forming an intricate design that appeared almost organic, as if grown rather than crafted. Reyes felt himself tremble as her gaze settled on him, and he could swear he felt her studying him, measuring him, as though she could see into the very depths of his soul. He was overwhelmed, unsure if he should speak or even move. He was in the presence of something far beyond his understanding, and every instinct within him urged reverence and humility. The figure's voice filled the chamber, not in sound, but as a presence within his mind, a voice that seemed to bypass his ears and resonate directly within his consciousness. It was melodic and powerful, carrying the weight of ages and the wisdom of 1,000 stars. He understood her without needing translation, as though her words were carved into the very fabric of his thoughts. "Welcome, traveler," she intoned, her voice reverberating through his mind. "You have reached the Anunnaki outpost, an archive of knowledge left for you, a testament to what came before your civilization." The words echoed in his mind, and Reyes struggled to steady his thoughts. Questions flooded his mind, colliding and tangling, but her presence had a calming effect, grounding him in the moment. Who are you?" he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am Erashkigal," she replied. "I am but an echo, a memory preserved within this place. I am here to share our story, to guide those who have sought knowledge beyond the boundaries of their own world." As she spoke, images began to form in the air around them, projections that appeared as shimmering, translucent scenes, each one depicting moments that felt both familiar and alien. Reyes found himself gazing at images of planets, starships, and entire worlds unlike anything in human records. He watched as scenes unfolded, showing the Anunnaki standing tall on worlds with emerald skies, cities that towered toward unfamiliar suns, and landscapes shaped by forces beyond Earth's wildest dreams. "Long ago, we were explorers, much like you," Erashkigal continued, her gaze fixed on the images floating around them. "We traveled across galaxies, seeding worlds with life, guiding evolution, and watching over young civilizations. For countless millennia, we nurtured life on many worlds, including your own." Reyes listened, captivated as she described the ancient and sprawling civilization of the Anunnaki. They had once thrived as architects of worlds, their reach extending beyond the Milky Way. Their species had mastered the fabric of reality itself, creating outposts like the one on Mars as way stations, archives, and sanctuaries of knowledge. But then her tone shifted, a shadow falling over her golden eyes. "But as we grew, so did our differences," she said. "A rift formed within our people, a division that tore us apart. Some among us wished to guide younger species, to nurture them as we once nurtured Earth. Others sought power, dominance over what they deemed inferior. What began as an ideological divide grew into a schism, a civil war that spanned worlds. The projections shifted, now showing battles waged across alien landscapes, with ships ablaze and cities crumbling under weapons far beyond human comprehension. The conflict was unlike anything Reyes could have imagined, an interstellar war fought between gods. He could feel the weight of the devastation in her voice, the sorrow of a civilization that had torn itself asunder. In the end, we were forced to abandon much of our work, including Earth, Erashkigal explained, her voice tinged with a sadness that seemed to span millennia. Many of us left this galaxy entirely to escape the conflict and to rebuild in peace. But before we departed, we left behind outposts such as this one. We hoped that one day, those we had nurtured might grow, learn, and seek us out, not as subjects, but as allies. Her words hung in the air, resonating with Reyes in a way that transcended understanding. He felt both humbled and overwhelmed. The Anunnaki had been more than just visitors or conquerors. They had been guardians, stewards of life, leaving behind fragments of their civilization for those who would one day rise to find it. And now you stand before me, Erashkigal continued, her voice filled with a gentle pride. You have reached beyond your world, stepping into the vast unknown. This outpost was left for you and your kind, a testament to the potential we saw within humanity. Reyes could hardly speak, his mind racing with questions. What knowledge had they left behind? What secrets lay within this archive, waiting to be uncovered? And more importantly, why had they chosen humanity for such a legacy? Erashkigal seemed to sense his thoughts. The knowledge within this outpost is vast, she said, but it is also dangerous. It holds the power to build and to destroy, to create wonders beyond your imagination and weapons beyond your worst fears. This is our gift to you, but it is also a test of wisdom, of restraint, and of compassion. For we learned at great cost that power without wisdom leads only to ruin. Her golden eyes bore into his, her gaze filled with both hope and caution. Reyes understood her words with a clarity that left no room for doubt. This was no mere archive of knowledge. It was a legacy, a responsibility, a bridge between two civilizations separated by space and time. And he was the bearer of that responsibility, the bridge between a forgotten past and an unknown future. As Erashkigal's image began to fade, the consoles around him pulsed once more, the symbols shifting into a final message, a phrase that stayed etched in his mind long after her presence had disappeared. Remember, traveler, knowledge is not the end, it is only the beginning. And with that, the chamber fell silent once more, leaving Reyes alone in the vastness of the outpost, with the weight of an entire civilization's hopes resting upon his shoulders. As Captain Michael Reyes stood in the dim glow of the Anunnaki outpost, he listened, transfixed, to the holographic figure of Erashkigal, her voice weaving a tapestry of knowledge so vast that it felt like peering into the very heart of time itself. Her words were melodic, laced with wisdom and power, and as she spoke, the air around her seemed to shimmer with scenes from a forgotten age, a time before Earth had yet to understand itself, a time when the Anunnaki had roamed the stars. I am Erashkigal, she began, her voice resonating in his mind like a symphony of secrets. I was once a scientist and a leader among my people, the Anunnaki, beings who sought to shape the cosmos and nurture life across galaxies. As she spoke, images appeared around her, celestial bodies in perfect harmony, planets teeming with lush life, and massive interstellar vessels drifting like islands across oceans of stars. Reyes felt his breath catch as the images moved through cosmic clouds, presenting visions of worlds untouched by human knowledge. He realized, with a thrill of awe, that he was being given access to knowledge that no human mind had ever held. Over 60,000 Earth years ago, Erashkigal continued, your world was still young, wild, and full of potential. Earth was one among many planets we had selected for a grand experiment, a galactic garden. We were drawn to its unique potential, its vibrant landscapes, and the primordial life forms struggling to survive and evolve. Her words were accompanied by holographic projections of early Earth. Reyes watched as scenes of volcanic landscapes, vast oceans, and sprawling forests appeared before him, teeming with ancient and primordial life. He saw massive, lumbering creatures moving across plains, predatory beasts prowling, and skies filled with birds of staggering size. The world she described was raw and untouched, a place on the cusp of greatness, brimming with energy and wildness. Earth was beautiful, Erashkigal said, her gaze softening, as if the memories held a deep personal resonance. It was brimming with raw potential. We were drawn to its potential for diversity, a richness we believed could one day host intelligent life. She went on to explain that the Anunnaki were not mere explorers, but creators, visionaries with the power to manipulate genetics, energy, and matter at will. In the beginning, they had established a series of outposts across Earth, hidden sanctuaries where their scientists and architects worked tirelessly to shape the biosphere. Using advanced genetic technology, they had introduced strains of life that would enrich Earth's diversity. Creatures were sculpted, ecosystems shaped, and landscapes altered with a precision that was incomprehensible to Reyes. "We sculpted the planet carefully," Erashkigal explained. "We introduced changes slowly, guiding evolution along paths that would foster stability, resilience, and eventually intelligence." The holograms shifted, showing scenes of Anunnaki scientists standing among strange machinery, their hands raised toward creatures they were designing, species that bore the seeds of both Earth's past and future. There were large aquatic beasts, early forms of mammals, and even plant life, engineered to thrive in specific environments. In some scenes, the Anunnaki worked alongside early humans, primitive hominids whose existence had been altered to increase intelligence and adaptability. Reyes felt a deep sense of wonder as he realized the implications. Humanity's very evolution had been a guided process, overseen by a civilization from the stars. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki watched over Earth, tending to its fledgling life forms. Erashkigal's eyes softened as she spoke of this era, her voice carrying a note of reverence for a time that had been the peak of her people's ambition. "We lived in harmony then," she said. "Our vision was unified, our purpose clear. We were caretakers, stewards of life. Our mission was to help young species reach their potential, not through domination, but through guidance." The images shifted to display Anunnaki cities on distant worlds, structures that gleamed with otherworldly beauty, made from materials that seemed alive, shimmering under alien skies. Reyes saw scenes of cultural gatherings, artistic performances, and celebrations among the Anunnaki, each event a testament to their intellectual and spiritual advancement. They were a civilization of scholars, artists, and philosophers, and their lives were dedicated to exploration and the spread of life. Erashkigal described their grand project, a vast network of planets, each nurtured and cultivated, all designed to one day become part of an intergalactic tapestry of interconnected worlds. Each world was treated as sacred, its potential seen as part of a larger cosmic purpose. But as she spoke, the images shifted again, growing darker and heavier. The sense of peace and prosperity was shattered as Erashkigal's face took on a solemn expression. "But as we grew, so did our divisions," she said quietly. "Our success brought pride, and pride gave way to differing visions. Ideals once unified became fractured, and our purpose, our grand project, became a point of contention." She explained that a faction within the Anunnaki had become dissatisfied. They felt that as creators and overseers, they had the right not merely to guide, but to rule the planets and species they had uplifted. This faction believed that the Anunnaki should use their advanced technology to exert control, to shape worlds directly, molding civilizations into whatever image they desired. They argued that the Anunnaki were gods and should act as such. Erashkigal's faction, however, opposed this view. They saw their role as one of guidance, not dominion. To them, younger species had to be given the freedom to evolve, to discover their own potential, rather than live under the shadow of another civilization's desires. The disagreement grew into heated debates, and then, over time, the debates escalated into outright hostility. A holographic display of the schism showed the once harmonious cities now divided, symbols of both factions clashing. The disagreement deepened until their differences tore through the very fabric of Anunnaki society, splintering them into two opposing camps. What began as a philosophical divide, Erashkigal continued, soon became a rift too deep to heal. The desire to rule and dominate spread like a disease, infecting even those who had once believed in peace. Our leaders, our greatest minds, were drawn into the conflict, and before we realized the full impact of our actions, we were engulfed in civil war. As Erashkigal spoke, the chamber filled with images of devastation. Reyes saw scenes of Anunnaki ships battling in the skies above alien worlds, of great cities crumbling under the onslaught of advanced weaponry, of landscapes marred by destruction. The tools they had once used to build and create were now wielded as weapons, and the scale of the devastation was unimaginable. Entire worlds were destroyed, Erashkigal said, her voice laced with sorrow. We were tearing ourselves apart, our people consumed by a war that raged across galaxies, and in the end, we lost ourselves. Those of us who believed in nurturing life were forced to retreat, driven away by the very civilization we had once called home. The images of battle faded, replaced by visions of planets left in ruin, the echoes of an empire that had once spanned the stars. Erashkigal explained that, in the chaos, many of their sacred projects were abandoned. Earth, once a cherished world, had to be left behind. Yet even in their retreat, her faction was determined to leave behind traces of their existence, seeds of knowledge, to remind humanity of what had come before. Our dreams were not entirely lost, Erashkigal continued, her voice softening with a hint of hope. We left behind relics, outposts like this one, containing the accumulated wisdom of our people, waiting to be discovered by those who would one day walk among the stars. She explained that the outpost Reyes now stood in had been constructed with the sole purpose of sharing the truth with humanity. It was hidden intentionally, designed to awaken only once humanity had evolved enough to reach beyond its own world. The Anunnaki had left similar waypoints across the galaxy, each one holding fragments of their knowledge, scattered like breadcrumbs for the civilizations that might follow in their footsteps. This outpost, she said, gesturing to the room around them, contains records of our history, our science, our culture. But it is not just knowledge, it is a reminder of our mistakes, a testament to what happens when power is placed above wisdom. Reyes felt a weight settle upon him as her words sank in. The Anunnaki hadn't simply abandoned Earth, they had left behind a message, a warning, and a challenge. The knowledge contained within this outpost was a gift, but it was also a test, a bridge that humanity could cross only if it was ready to wield the responsibility that came with such power. As Erashkigal's hologram began to fade, she fixed Reyes with a piercing gaze, her golden eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. Your people stand at the same precipice we once faced, she said. The potential within humanity is vast, but so too are the temptations. Be cautious, learn from our mistakes, for with great knowledge comes the greatest of responsibilities. Reyes nodded, a sense of awe and respect filling him. He understood now that this was more than a simple history lesson. It was a message, a legacy left by a civilization that had witnessed its own destruction, hoping that others might avoid the same fate. As Erashkigal's form faded into a cloud of light, her final words echoed through the chamber. Remember, traveler, knowledge is only as powerful as the wisdom with which it is wielded. Take this legacy with care, for it is both your gift and your burden. And then she was gone, leaving Reyes alone in the silence of the ancient chamber, his mind reeling with the weight of a history both alien and profoundly human. He stood in awe, feeling the depth of the responsibility he now held. The future of humanity had taken on new meaning, and he knew that he had a mission not just to share what he had learned, but to ensure that his people understood the true nature of the legacy left behind. As Captain Michael Reyes stood in the silent, glowing chamber of the Anunnaki outpost, Erashkigal's hologram shimmered in the soft, bluish light, her ancient gaze fixed on him with an intensity that transcended mere sight. Her presence felt alive, as if her essence still lingered within the outpost, watching and weighing his every reaction. Captain Reyes, she intoned, her voice resonating with the gravity of centuries, I have something to show you. It is a gift, but also a burden, a legacy of wisdom and power meant for those ready to wield it with care. Erashkigal gestured toward a section of the wall, and as she did, a part of the smooth stone-like surface slid open seamlessly, revealing a hidden compartment. Reyes held his breath as he stepped closer, peering into the recess that had lain hidden for untold millennia. Inside, bathed in soft light, lay an artifact, a small crystalline device shaped almost like an orb with facets that caught and refracted the ambient glow. The device pulsed faintly, as if it held a life of its own, each pulse syncing with the subtle hum of energy that permeated the chamber. Reyes reached out, feeling a strange mixture of reverence and hesitation. His gloved fingers brushed the cool, glass-like surface of the crystal, and the moment he touched it, he felt a surge of warmth run through him, a tingling sensation that seemed to pulse with intelligence, resonating with his thoughts. "This," Erashkigal said softly, "is the Codex of the Anunnaki, a repository of our knowledge. Within this device lies the collected wisdom of our civilization, the sciences, the arts, the philosophies, and the technologies that took us across galaxies. It is a guide, a map, a history, and a manual, all woven into one. With it, your people could accelerate their progress by centuries, perhaps even more." Reyes could barely fathom the scope of what she was saying. In his hands was an artifact that could alter the trajectory of human history forever. The potential implications were staggering. Scientific leaps that might have taken centuries of incremental study and discovery could now be compressed into a single generation. New forms of energy, technologies to conquer disease, environmental healing methods, and knowledge of the cosmos. All of this and more was contained within the Codex. He turned the crystal in his hands, noticing how it seemed to react to his touch. The facets shifted slightly, forming patterns of light within its depths, as though it were reading him, learning his intentions. He felt a strange sensation, as though it were probing his thoughts, gently guiding his understanding of its contents. "This device," Erashkigal explained, "was crafted with care, designed to share only what you are prepared to understand. It adapts, it learns, and it reveals itself slowly, only to those who approach it with wisdom and humility. Our scientists and philosophers believe that knowledge should be protected from those who would wield it recklessly." As she spoke, scenes began to materialize within the crystal's depths. Reyes saw visions of distant planets, spiraling galaxies, alien ecosystems filled with life forms that defied comprehension. He saw technological blueprints for machines that could harness energy from the stars, vehicles that could travel beyond the limitations of light, devices that healed living beings at the cellular level, and codes for an artificial intelligence so advanced that it appeared almost alive. Erashkigal's voice grew softer but more intense. "Our knowledge has the power to heal, to elevate, and to transform. But it also has the power to bring ruin, as we ourselves learned. Power without wisdom leads to hubris, and hubris leads to destruction." The image of an Anunnaki city, once resplendent and alive with energy, flickered within the crystal. Reyes watched as the city, with its towering spires and glistening waterways, was reduced to ruins by a devastating force, a reminder of the civil war that had torn the Anunnaki apart. Reyes felt the weight of Erashkigal's gaze upon him as she continued, "When we left this galaxy, we did so with great sorrow. We saw the seeds of our destruction and knew we could not stay, lest we bring ruin to all that we had built." The Codex was left behind as both a gift and a test. Those who find it are given a choice to wield knowledge with care or to use it heedlessly. We hoped, perhaps foolishly, that the inheritors of our knowledge might avoid the fate we brought upon ourselves. The enormity of what she was asking settled heavily upon him. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down by a civilization that had already walked this path and paid a terrible price for its missteps. "Why leave this knowledge at all?" Reyes asked, finding his voice, though it was thick with awe and uncertainty. "If it's so dangerous, why not destroy it, or bury it so deeply it would never be found?" Erashkigal's gaze softened, and for the first time, her expression conveyed a sense of deep, ancient sorrow. "Because hope is as persistent as it is irrational," she replied. "Even after all we lost, a part of us believed that somewhere, sometime, another species might find this place and use our knowledge to build rather than destroy. We believed that wisdom could be found not only in our mistakes, but in those who might come after us. You see, Captain Reyes, we did not create life merely to control it. We created life because we believed in its capacity to grow, to learn, and perhaps to surpass us." Reyes looked down at the Codex, feeling its weight both physically and metaphorically. The Anunnaki had gambled the future on the hope that humanity, or some other species, could learn from the lessons written in their history, that they would have the strength to wield the Codex's power with caution and integrity. It was a strange irony. The very species that had seen itself as godlike had left its wisdom in the hands of beings who were just beginning to walk among the stars. He could feel the Codex attuning to him, like a whisper in his mind, faint yet undeniably present. With each passing moment, he sensed layers of knowledge aligning with his thoughts, as though the device were selectively revealing only what he was capable of grasping. He found himself glimpsing fragments of advanced scientific theories, barely understandable equations for quantum mechanics and interstellar propulsion, as well as formulas that seemed to defy conventional understanding of biology and physics. It was overwhelming, yet fascinating beyond measure. As he struggled to comprehend the immensity of the Codex, Erashkigal explained, "The Codex is designed to be unlocked gradually, responding to the understanding of its bearer. It has fail-safes, protections that limit its power. Knowledge is released in stages as understanding grows and wisdom is tested. Should its user seek power over understanding, the Codex will simply close itself off." Reyes marveled at the insight behind its design. The Anunnaki had anticipated that those who sought out the Codex might not be ready for its full power and had built into it a safeguard, a check against reckless ambition. It wasn't just a device. It was a guide, a teacher, and in a way, a guardian of its own secrets. Erashkigal's expression turned grave, her voice a quiet but powerful echo in the chamber. "But be warned, Michael Rise, we once failed our own civilization because we lost sight of our purpose. We became entranced by our own capabilities, intoxicated by the reach of our power. We thought ourselves invincible, and in that arrogance, we sowed the seeds of our ruin. The Codex is not merely a key to advancement. It is a mirror. It will reflect your intentions, your desires, and your fears. Use it wisely, for with it comes a burden that can uplift or destroy." Reyes took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle within him like a heavy stone. This wasn't just about his own discovery. It was about humanity's path forward. Could they be trusted with the power contained within this crystalline device? Would they use it to heal their planet, cure diseases, and reach new frontiers? Or would they succumb to the same hubris that had undone the Anunnaki? "Do you believe we are ready for this?" Reyes asked, his voice barely a whisper. Erashkigal regarded him thoughtfully, her golden eyes reflecting eons of experience and wisdom. "That, Captain Reyes, is not for me to decide. The path forward is yours to choose. But remember this, the Codex will reveal as much about you as it will about the knowledge it holds. In time, it will test your intentions. And in that test, you will find your answer." Her image began to fade, her presence retreating into the depths of the outpost, but her final words hung in the air, their gravity echoing in his mind long after she had vanished. "Guard this knowledge well, and guard your heart even more so. For knowledge, in the wrong hands, is more perilous than ignorance." Reyes stood alone once again, holding the Codex carefully, as though it were both a treasure and a weapon. The chamber was silent, save for the soft hum of energy within the device. He closed his eyes, the weight of his responsibility pressing down upon him. The decision before him was monumental. He could return to Earth and deliver the Codex, or he could keep it hidden, protecting humanity from the temptations and dangers it held. Slowly, Reyes felt a sense of resolve harden within him. The Codex was a gift, and like all gifts of power, it required those who would wield it to carry the wisdom of its purpose. He would take it back to Earth, but he would also bear Erashkigal's warning in his heart, guarding the knowledge carefully, revealing only what could be safely shared, teaching humanity not only the fruits of the Codex's knowledge, but the cautionary tale of its creators. As he exited the outpost, the Codex pulsing softly in his hands, he felt the weight of history resting on his shoulders, and yet a glimmer of hope illuminated his path forward. The knowledge of the Anunnaki, a civilization that had reached beyond the stars only to be torn apart by its own power, was now within his grasp. And as he gazed up at the Martian sky, he felt both humbled and determined, knowing that the path forward would require not just intelligence, but the highest order of humanity's wisdom. After days in the shadowy, hallowed halls of the Anunnaki outpost, Captain Michael Reyes emerged into the cold Martian dawn, the weight of a galactic legacy pressing upon him. He had spent sleepless hours poring over the Codex, testing the device's responses to his questions, and absorbing its revelations about the universe, time, and human potential. It had shown him the heights to which civilization could soar and the chasms into which it could plummet, offering glimpses of miraculous technologies and spiritual philosophies beyond human understanding. Reyes was not just returning to Earth with a powerful artifact. He was returning as the harbinger of a new age, bearing both the light of possibility and the shadow of caution. With every hour spent with the Codex, the burden of choice grew heavier. Should he share this knowledge freely or protect humanity from truths it might not be ready to bear? Standing outside the outpost for the last time, Reyes cast his gaze over the landscape of Mars, the endless, windswept plains and towering red dunes. He felt a deep ache. A strange bond had formed between him and this place, a feeling that went beyond mere discovery. This desolate, ancient outpost was like a grand cathedral of forgotten stars, a place built with purpose, and it had come to feel like both a cradle of new beginnings and a graveyard of old ones. As he prepared to leave, Reyes took one final tour through the outpost, allowing his fingers to trail along its strange, crystalline walls, feeling the weight of ancient eyes upon him. Each corner of the outpost, from the faintly glowing consoles to the etched symbols that told of civilizations beyond Earth, now held meaning. These were the final footprints of a civilization that had once touched the stars, beings who had left this galaxy so that their mistakes might be understood and, hopefully, not repeated. He approached the now dormant holographic interface where Erashkigal had first appeared, standing still as if expecting her presence to emerge one last time. "Thank you," he murmured softly. "I don't know if we're ready, but I'll do my best to honor what you left behind." Only silence answered, but Reyes imagined that somewhere, perhaps in the space between stars, Erashkigal and her people might hear him. After securing the Codex within a specially sealed compartment, Reyes boarded his shuttle, running his gloved fingers over the control panels as he began the launch sequence. He knew he was leaving this place with something unprecedented. The Codex, glowing softly in its containment, radiated a steady warmth, as if reassuring him. Yet it was also a weight, reminding him of the monumental choice awaiting him back on Earth. As the engines roared to life, Reyes felt the shuttle shudder beneath him, the familiar pressure building as the craft broke free from Mars's surface. He glanced out the viewport, catching a final glimpse of the outpost shrinking below. There, amid the Martian dust, was the relic of an empire whose reach had once spanned galaxies. The thought humbled him. In the soft dimness of the shuttle, as the red sands faded away, Reyes began to feel the fullness of his isolation. There was no one to consult, no counsel to guide his actions. He was returning to a world that would look at him as a hero and as a pioneer.
If you like this story, please press the like button and subscribe. It encourages me to write more stories. Thank you.